Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. It is Q&A Friday, and it is a very special Q&A Friday today because we have one of our favorite guests, Andy Carluccio from Zoom, is here to chat about some of the new things going on over there. We saw some announcements come out at ISE, and we've already got some questions stacking up. Some folks might have seen your post on LinkedIn. So I know that you have some things to show us, but just a reminder to the audience, we're going to probably have a lot of questions today, and we only have Andy for a today time for sure. So voting's very important. Why don't I throw it over to you, Andy, and you can tell us a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on with enhanced media.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks again for having me. It's so wonderful to be back with everyone. And you're totally right, CJ, that Integrated Systems Europe, ISE, it's kind of when Zoom wakes up from hibernation for the winter and has a bunch of exciting announcements to start us off for the year. And so there were three big things that we announced at ISE last week in Barcelona, and I'm looking forward to sharing them with you today. So first is our new Zoom Enhanced Media add-on, and this is going to be a really powerful feature for those who are doing professional work with video over Zoom. So it includes a number of features together that are valuable for professional media work. 60 FPS participant video, 12 megabit per second bitrate on those videos, enhanced sharing profiles, the general availability of high bandwidth mode. So there are a number of things in there that just totally transform the video experience inside of Zoom for professional media work, and we're super excited about it. So that's available now for customers with an account rep, so what we call our direct channel. And then it'll be available for online purchase next month in March. I think March 21st is our target date. And then we're working with all of the third parties that have adopted Zoom's SDKs to get their apps ready to support this as well. So you'll hear more from them probably in March and in the months to come as they adopt these changes as well. We'll also be introducing them to ZoomISO and Custom AV for Zoom Rooms. So you'll be able to get this superior media experience. On my LinkedIn, I put a little A/B comparison and a YouTube video that you can check out to see some of the differences as well. But for a variety of different use cases, you're going to find that this is going to be smoother video, more consistent frame delivery, more lifelike video, sharper detail. All these things work together to make a really powerful offering there. So that's enhanced media.
Yeah, you're running at a much higher bandwidth than it was before. What's for somebody that has a 1080 account today, what sort of bandwidth are they pulling down at the moment, just for reference?
Yeah, that's right. So it would be 4 to 6 megabit per second, depending on what the nature of the content in the video frame is. Usually it's hovering around 4 for talking heads, and then if there's motion in the frame, it would go up to 6 megabit. So the enhanced high bit rate offering that we have on the enhanced media SKU actually doubles to triples that bit rate from 8 to 12. So if you're doing 30 FPS with high bit rate on, it's going to be closer to 8. And if you add 60 FPS on top of that, it will go all the way up to 12.
So in other words, if you're a contributor who's not making the jump to 60 frames a second, but you're getting this enhanced media add-on, you're going to get a much richer video.
That's right.
Zoom's transport.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And when you think about, video quality, right, there's resolution and frame rate, which are things that we talk about a lot, but bitrate also plays a huge role in the quality of that picture, right? If you had a low bitrate 4K video stream, this is why you sometimes see these cheap cameras that advertise 4K, but the substance of the video is actually not that much better. It's because often the bitrate is very throttled on those connections. So by increasing the bitrate, you're basically telling the pixels what color to be more accurately. So you end up with better color reproduction, smoother gradients, sharper details. These things all pile up to make the image a lot better looking. So higher bit rate at a resolution can make often a bigger difference than just jumping up the resolution and maintaining the bit rate.
All right, I don't want to get too far down the enhanced media rabbit hole, because I know that you had some other stuff that you were posting about last week also.
Yeah, that's right. We've had a really exciting partnership with Vizrt. If you don't know Vizrt, they're big in the world of graphics and television broadcasting. So sports, news and weather, things like that. They do a lot of graphics there, and they also have the new tech assets, so Tricaster and NDI and those products in the portfolio, as well as some web-based graphics, Flowix, and a number of other things that they're doing in HTML5 graphics work. And what we've seen in the industry is these converging needs between television broadcasters and enterprise production teams. So Zoom and Vizrt have partnered, and we're offering two new products together called Captivate and Interactify. So Captivate is for Zoom Rooms, and it pairs up using the custom AV features that we have in Zoom Rooms, and it allows you to do AR graphics inside of conference room space. So taking content that you would normally present as a slide deck and go full screen on, now let's bring that into the room and anchor it spatially inside of that space. So as cameras are moving around and whatnot, those graphics are persistently anchored to specific locations in the space. But what's cool about this is that they're using their AI tools to make this really powerful. So you get accurate reflection maps and shadows that are automatically generated by their system. You also have the ability to do a background removal without having a green screen. So they have this amazing library of video content that they've trained their AI models on that allows them to do a specialized key. And then they refine that with additional intelligence that they're getting in the space that they actually map out. And it allows the AI to do a very good edge removal. And then place people and graphics in a spatial location. This is some of the technology that you've seen on those virtual set extensions. If you've watched, especially around like election time, you see a lot of that coverage where they'll walk from a physical set over to a digital area and be immersed in the graphics and maybe have some sort of teleportation style things going on. And so now that technology has all been adapted and brought into the enterprise space. And so what's cool about this is it's all software defined, right? So you don't need to have like a studio space with specialized cameras that are doing telemetry in order to calculate, where the graphic has to be. Vizrt is doing all this on the software side, so they can use any PTZ camera. You don't need, specialized green screen and lighting. Obviously, the more you put into the space, the better the results that you're going to get back. But they even have the ability to refine their AI models on a customer by customer basis as part of their managed services. So if there's specific objects or things that you commonly need to key out, they can refine their AI models on reference images of that content. So really, really powerful AI-based system for the conference room that brings a lot of production value into the key spaces that want to push beyond the limits of a traditional conference room. They also have an app called Interactify, and this is a more traditional Zoom app. It brings a lot of those web-based video overlays directly into your camera feed inside of Zoom. But it's powered by the same Flowix engine that's managing all these amazing sports graphics that they're doing on the Flowix side. So you can come in as a corporate customer, give them your brand and style guide, and they can produce a whole rundown of different graphics that you can then trigger easily inside of the Zoom app. No additional software needed, no virtual cameras or anything like that. It all runs directly inside of the Zoom Workplace client, but delivers those broadcast quality graphics that Vizrt is known for directly to enterprise customers.
And are any of those AI tools that are coming over from that group, are they making their way over to because you have background removal and virtual background and green screen and blurring and those sorts of there is some sort of image processing happening in Zoom now, but I just want to clarify this is a completely separate operation.
That's right. So these are separate stacks. So what Zoom is doing for kind of the head and shoulders background removal is a more general setup that doesn't necessarily require camera calibration or things like that in order to do. What Vizrt is doing is very, very specific for background segmentation. Similar idea that you don't need a green screen in order to do it, but it's a totally different algorithm, and it's trained on specific broadcast media that they've done, and they've labeled the data set and run the algorithms on that to train their own in-house AI models that do this specifically for these wider shots, these conference room style shots. And you can see the demos, and we'll be sharing more of that in the near future so you can get a sense of what it looks like. But what's really nice about it is that tailoring, that they can then work on a specific space and refine the model specifically for that room so that you get a really good key out of that specific space that they can train on.
We do have some questions that are coming in. We're going to get to those in just a moment, but just a reminder, we do have a Zoom tag. If you're in Makana asking a question, you can tag your question specifically for Zoom. We're looking for those first today since we've got Andy here, and he's here to answer some questions. And also a reminder, voting is going to really drive the show today. All right, you had one more thing for us, Andy, before we get to questions?
Yeah, that's right. At the Grass Valley booth at ISE, we had the world's first demo of the Media Exchange Layer version 1.0, connecting Zoom and Grass Valley through our ZoomISO Cloud. So if you haven't been following, there's this group called the Dynamic Media Facility Team, the DMF, and what they have done is they've defined what does cloud production look like in a vendor-agnostic environment that allows us to be super flexible and scalable. What is the technology we would need to make that happen. Now, when we talk about cloud production in this community, often what we're doing is virtualizing native software, so taking things like vMix or Zoom Rooms and then running them on like an EC2 instance and then putting that in the cloud. And that gives you some of the benefits of the cloud, like being in a data center with high uptime availability, having high bandwidth connections, and being able to essentially rent hardware that is more expensive than if you purchased it. But the cloud production model that works in that way is leaving a lot of value on the table from virtualizing services. So when we are thinking about on the Zoom side is not just how we take an app that is running on your computer and then run that inside of the cloud, but how do we reimagine that app and make it work inside of a cloud environment? And that's what some of the bigger players in the cloud space are doing is reimagining these services to run inside of the cloud environment. And what's powering this demo is Media Exchange Layer, or MXL. What MXL is basically saying that if we're two neighboring services inside of a cloud production environment, that rather than compressing the video and sending it over the network, what we should do instead is just use the fact that we both have access to the same shared memory and actually share those buffers between the applications. So that drastically reduces latency because there is no copying of frames. It has incredibly high throughput because we're not limited on network technology to do these things. RAM is really, really fast. And it doesn't introduce any intermediate compression, so we're maintaining this high quality. So the idea is we ingest video, and then we pass it through different vendors simply by sharing access to shared memory. And MXL is really, really interesting. There are a lot of sessions about it. I'll if there's questions about it, I'm happy to go into more detail. But the general idea is that we're able to share memory and do really, really effective cloud management that's designed for virtualized services, designed for the cloud. So the ZoomISO demo was showing 4 remote guests coming in through Zoom, and then each of those became discrete MXL flows. Grass Valley AMP was receiving those flows, producing a show, and then passing the return feed back to Zoom as a mix minus that we could then bring back into Zoom and show like a participant camera and microphone would show up. So end-to-end demo powered by AMP. I think we're on release candidate 2 of the 1.0 spec of MXL. So we're super excited to see that come to fruition and for Zoom to kind of plant a flag in the cloud production space as this is the way we see remote contribution working in cloud environments. So we're super excited about all of that stuff with MXL. And it was a really awesome demo. Again, world's first. They released the SDK for the 1.0 release on Christmas Eve. So we worked through the holidays to get that demo ready to share. And we'll have more to share about that once MXL is fully ratified, and we can get this out into the AMP marketplace and to other cloud providers.
Cool. Well, I did have another question pop up in my head about the enhanced media add-on. Does this have any impact on the extra bandwidth? Does that have any impact on screen sharing as that's rolling through, or is it limited just to the video contribution?
No, it actually does affect screen sharing as well. So today, our sharing quality is capped at 30 FPS. So if you share your screen and you optimize for video, you get up to 30 FPS. If you turn off optimize for video, you can go to 4K, but it would be like 8 to 12 FPS. It wouldn't be the full frame rate. And so what enhanced media is doing is saying, while keeping 1080p resolution, ramp all the way up to 60 FPS. And that makes a big difference for like video game content review, professional media review work. It's much more valuable in that sense. So the frame rate addition does apply. You'll see essentially 5 settings in the Zoom web portal where you can go down and select, do I want the 60 FPS video? Do I want high bit rate? Do I want the enhanced content sharing? And then inside of Zoom, you'll be able to actually see those things and select them. And
then as far as getting this better audio and video quality pipeline into your system, who's supporting this out of the gate as far as partners? Is it with software switchers, with the liminal tools? Where are we going to see that first?
Yeah, so we've shared that ZoomISO and Custom AV for Zoom Rooms will have support for enhanced media in their next releases. And then we're working with all the third-party developers who have adopted our SDKs. We've introduced the feature earlier in the year and worked with them directly to say, hey, let's go ahead and have you guys look at adding support. And then you'll probably hear more from them when we do the online launch of the feature on March 21st, and then as they ship updates throughout the year. But we've already provided the technology to developers. They're just doing their testing and development work now, and we'll be sharing more about that in March when we launch the SKU for online purchase.
Cool. Well, with that, let's roll into the first question, Alexander.
This first question comes from the QR code. This is Tochi Onyebuchi in Manyema, and he's asking, we just tried Zoom going right into Wirecast, and it was very weird in audio routings or how consistent input quality is. Is it glitchy in the API, or are there ways Zoom can make this better? Does this happen for a lot of API integration apps? Thanks.
What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, so Wirecast is one of those developers who is using the Zoom Meeting SDK. So if you're actually using the Zoom integration that's built directly into Wirecast, that's how the connection's being made. Now, we don't hear reports of this for most integrations that are out there, vMix, mimoLive. I don't necessarily hear about these things from them. So this sounds like it could be a Wirecast specific implementation question. I definitely recommend reaching out to them and seeing if they have any advice. What we do is we have sessions that we've given to third-party developers to explain, how the audio coming in from Zoom should be processed. It has stereo 48K PCM, and we walk through, some video tutorials that we provided directly to developers when we have an engagement. So possibly something on their end to take a look at, but I don't see that as a common issue. One thing that you can always do if you're curious about what is Zoom capable of versus one of these integrations that I'm using is to download zOSC. It's kind of our reference implementation of that meeting SDK. It's the same SDK that we give to third-party developers, so we're using all the same features they have, but it's built by our team, so we know that SDK pretty well, and we work on it directly, so that offers some direct insight into what Zoom's capable of. So maybe give zOSC a try. You can try it in trial mode and use the advanced audio feature to do some routing or do some embedded audio maybe into an NDI feed. See if you still have the issue, and then either way, you can always keep using Wirecast, but at least that will rule out Zoom's developer tools as the bottleneck or the issue or whatever it is you're seeing.
Next question.
This question is coming from Oliver Breidenbach from mimoLive headquarters in Zoom Workplace. Is there a limit for frame rate or resolution that the app can receive from a virtual web camera?
Andy?
So what Zoom is going to do is it's going to downscale the incoming video stream to one of the profiles that it can encode. So if you send us more than 30 FPS or 60 FPS when we have enhanced media, or if you send us like 4K, Zoom's going to try to negotiate with the camera and say, do you have a profile available that meets one of the encoding profiles that I'm going to use? And if it can't do that, then it's going to have to engage the scaling, and that's going to consume more resources on your computer. So there may be a hard limit. I'm not necessarily aware of one. I haven't run into this in the field. But generally speaking, try to match what your virtual camera is doing to the profile that you want to target for Zoom, so that there doesn't have to be that intermediate step of adapting the incoming stream to a profile that we support. So for enhanced media, that's going to be 1080 60. So that'll be what I would recommend setting things to when you turn that setting on.
So in other words, it's similar to like if I've been in meetings before where it's like a mobile, like a phone joins the meeting or something. Then even if it's a 1080 meeting, it gets limited because Zoom is kind of dropping it down to what profile that lowest common denominator device is able to get. So similarly, if you're putting in something with more frames or more resolution, Zoom's just trying to figure out, okay, what's the highest resolution that this particular meeting is able to take, and then I'm going to bring it down.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that there's sometimes confusion about what we call ladder encoding. So what ladder encoding is it's basically saying I'm going to take this incoming video stream and I'm going to render it at multiple different resolutions, bit rates, and frame rates, and then I'm going to send all of those up to the cloud, and then the cloud is going to decide who gets what. So for example, if you're doing a live stream on YouTube and you have a resolution drop-down picker, that's you telling YouTube's CDN which rung of that ladder should I get. It's not sending you the full blast and then you're locally downscaling. The cloud actually has multiple video streams available to it. And what Zoom does is it does that ladder encoding on the edge. So your device is concurrently rendering 90p, 180p, 360p, and then traditionally it's been either 1080p or 720p. So if a device is connected to the call, and it's not all phones and all mobile devices, it's mobile devices on metered connections or older iPhones or Android devices, they would basically say, I'm not capable of receiving 1080p. And because the rung of the ladder, that's the HD rung, can either be 720p or 1080p, but not both, Zoom would ask that sender to send the 720p rung. And that would limit the other clients in the call who do have the capability of receiving 1080p from doing so, because the number of rungs in that ladder encode at the HD rung, there was only one for 720p and 1080p. One of the things that's really cool about the enhanced media add-on that we have is that when you activate that high bitrate setting, it's going to tell your client to simultaneously encode 720p and 1080p. So there's going to be another rung on the ladder. So the mobile device will be able to get its 720p video feed, and the qualified receivers who would otherwise be able to get 1080p will still get that stream because your device is going to be encoding both. It's going to consume more bandwidth. That's why it's part of the high bitrate feature because we say you should have about 20 megabit per second of uplink speed, and that encapsulates all the rungs of the ladder. So you have to think about how ladder encoding works to really understand what's going on behind the scenes in Zoom. That's why somebody in gallery view can receive a 360p or a 180p video stream, while a ZoomISO instance can still receive a 1080p instance of that user. It's because that device is encoding both of them. We're not splitting it in our cloud. And so because of that ladder encoding at the edge, that's where a lot of this behavior comes from. And that's one of the big value propositions of enhanced media, is that it makes more rungs in the ladder, so more different types of needs can be served simultaneously.
How much more processor intensive is that at the edge versus a vanilla Zoom implementation?
So it's always at the edge in any of the Zoom clients. This is part of the value proposition of what Zoom is doing. I think one of the reasons that Zoom works the way it does is that we kind of recognized that a lot of the ways that video conferencing had been done in the past relied on these big, heavy, cloud instances that were super expensive, and also introduced a lot of latency. And therefore you saw, lots of limitations around how many participants can be connected to the call and things like that. And what Zoom's innovation was to say, hey, these edge devices are getting more powerful. Let's utilize those and build platform-specific implementations, whether it's the DirectX stack on Windows or, some of the things that we can do in Apple Silicon or other, things that we can do to leverage those edge devices to do as much as we can within reason. And that's why we're able to do this ladder encoding at the edge.
Next question.
This question comes from James Haldane in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. When we add Zoom Panelists to shots in Wirecast, they get added with their volume at 0, and we have to manually go into the shot editor and turn their volume up. Is that a feature or a bug? Andy?
Yeah, you'd have to ask Wirecast, because this is all their specific implementation of the SDK. So we don't provide requirements like this as a developer tool. What we provide is access to our raw audio and video data, and then the developer who takes that SDK builds the video and audio pipelines on top of that, and then any user interface behavior they bring on top of that as well. So these are vendor specific implementation things that are either features or bugs, but they would be part of Wirecast. So you'd have to check with them.
Next question.
Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington is asking, what if I don't have a Zoom account rep? Do we have to wait until enhanced media is an option on the website in March to gain access?
Yes. So that's for a couple of reasons, including how we're doing our rollout and capacity and availability zones and things like that. But yes, that's the idea, is that today if you have a rep, they can set it up for you. Otherwise, online purchases in March. But the truth is that most of the clients that are going to benefit from this, Zoom Rooms, ZoomISO, and those third-party tools, those integrations are going to be coming live in March anyway. So I don't think, especially if you're doing media production type use cases, you're not necessarily missing out on time because those integrations have to come online as well in March. So that'll be the sweet spot for getting access to most of these things. I will say that we're already engaged with Office Hours and working on getting the Office Hours account set up, so that we're doing directly as part of our sponsorship. So there'll be more to come on that. And we're already working with the Office Hours team on getting everybody set up for that. So that's in progress. And then if you have a rep today and you're doing enterprise work, or you want this for like 4K gallery features and things like that on your desktop setup, that'll be available through your account rep. And then otherwise, you'll be able to purchase it online in March.
Next question.
This question comes in from Adrian Watkins in Wellington, New Zealand. Andy, is there any thinking now or longer term about official Stream Deck or companion control for ZPS scene switching? The Sunday crew would be very happy to help test.
I saw there was I think Elias Pirinen, he's part of the community here. He had posted on about Zoom OSC and how he was doing that on not in ZPS. So that's an interesting thought, Adrian. I like that. Andy?
Yeah. So today we support both modes, as you identified. We've got a direct Stream Deck integration that's on the Elgato marketplace that pairs up to Zoom Workplace and lets you do things like mute and unmute and send different reactions and things like that directly from the Stream Deck. And then we also have Zoom OSC, which opens up a ton of Zoom functionality over the Open Sound Control Protocol that can be directed either by generic OSC inside of Companion, or it can also be orchestrated by a specific module that we designed with Jeffrey Davids, and that now Justin James is maintaining on the Companion community. So you can take advantage of that there. For Production Studio, so a couple of things there. I don't actually work a bit with Production Studio these days, but this is a user demographics question, I think, because I think that the target personas that they're looking at for Production Studio are people who don't have even Stream Decks or have never heard of any of that stuff, and they're marketing personas who are just looking to add a little bit of branding to their experience. Whereas more of the stuff that we're doing with Zoom OSC and some of these other peripherals are for a higher end user. But that all being said, I think it's a great idea, and I'll happily pass it along to the team that works on Production Studio.
Adrian, you had a little more on that? Oop, can't hear you, Adrian.
Yeah, just what we find on the Sunday when we're switching between scenes at a great rate of knots with a mouse tends to be a bit like tap dancing on ice some mornings.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. I can see why that would be valuable. I'll let them know.
Thank you. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, will enhanced media be available to Pro Plan accounts?
Andy?
Yes, you'll be able to add it to any paid Zoom license. Yes, you'll be able to have a Pro account, and then you'll be able to add enhanced media. One of the things that's interesting about that is because Pro accounts today would only qualify for 720p, if you buy the enhanced media add-on, it will bump that account to 1080p so that you can take advantage of the features that you purchased through enhanced media. So as you think about what are my pathways to get 1080p at Zoom, you can have a single seat business license, because now you don't have to have a minimum of 10. You can just have the one. You can have Pro plus a Zoom Events license, or you can now have Pro plus enhanced media, and all of those will get you to 1080p.
The road to 1080p. That sounds familiar. I'm not sure. Next question.
This one's from Ronny Hofso in Tromsø, Norway. Are Zoom differentiating the API and available functions between all the various vendors that utilize the APIs, like mimoLive, Vizrt, Wirecast, or is it entirely up to the vendor to implement functions?
Andy?
It's entirely up to the vendor. So all the integrations you listed are using what's called the Zoom Meeting SDK. And the Meeting SDK is the same SDK that we build ZoomISO off of. So all the things that ZoomISO has available to it, all the third-party developers have available as well. And what's interesting about this is that they each have a unique perspective on how to do media production that makes their tools different, and that experience has informed which features and functions of the Zoom Meeting SDK they want to use or how they want to use them. Now, when they go through review with us, we try to provide some feedback about how we see, based on our experience with ZoomISO, users commonly use the applications or pitfalls that people might fall into, or common misunderstandings or things like that. And so we do try to give a bit of guidance on application design around things like how to do the capture modes, or the meeting join flow, or how to join Zoom events and things like that. We provide that feedback during our review process, but it's up to each developer to decide what they view as valuable from their Zoom integrations. It's also an invitation to you that if you know a developer has already implemented Zoom functionality, but you look at either one of the other integrations you listed, or you look at ZoomISO and you see something cool that those apps are doing, let that developer know, because they have the same ingredients that those other apps are using, and they can implement those features as well. They just need to probably hear from their users about what's valuable to them. So I usually encourage people to reach directly out to these developers and say, hey, here's how I'm using it. And oh, by the way, ZoomISO can do this, or I've seen this in another app. And so therefore, I think, it's possible, and we'd love to see that come to this app. And that's usually a very productive conversation.
Next question.
This one is coming from Guy Cochran in Seattle, USA. If someone shows up with a phone on Wi-Fi and we're all hardwired, how does the enhanced media work for 1080p, 720p ladder encoding?
Andy?
Yeah, so what will happen is if that mobile device is deemed to be only capable of receiving 720p, it will get the 720p rung of the encoding ladder, and everybody else will keep getting the 1080p one, because there won't be a choice between 720p and 1080p like you would have without enhanced media, where there are one rung of the ladder. There's going to be two rungs of the ladder, so each person can get what they're looking for independently.
And in addition, I have a tangentially related question. So if we have this enhanced media add-on and we have the high bandwidth mode as an option, Does that impact our contribution into a software switcher that's using the SDK like a ZoomISO or one of the other switchers that was mentioned?
Yeah, so the way it works is enhanced media is a property of the meeting owner's account. So just like 1080p today, where it's the owner of the meeting that determines whether there's a 1080p capability in the meeting, the owner of the meeting will determine whether there's 60 FPS or high bit rate for all the participants inside. So for office hours, for example, we don't necessarily need each individual panelist to go purchase enhanced media in order to contribute at the higher quality. We just need the owner account for office hours to have that, and then everybody who joins this meeting has the capability to do it. And then, yes, the software switchers would be included if they update their SDKs to support the enhanced media add-on, and that they review their video processing pipelines to make sure that they haven't made any hard-coded assumptions like, oh, Zoom will not send us more than 30 FPS, so we block it, in the pipeline somewhere. That's what the developers are looking at right now to make sure that their pipelines are ready for us to send, more frames per second across more participants concurrently. So they're going to have to update to support that, but that's the plan.
Next question.
Yeah, so this is one of my questions. How often should developers update the Zoom SDK in their production tools?
Andy?
So we have something called the Zoom quarterly lifecycle policy, which is when we expire older versions of the SDK, and we give you basically a window of time to continuously update your integrations. One of the things that I think it's a good question, though, and it's a question that we ask for our tools and that third parties ask us as well. And I think that it really depends on how often can you do QA work, and how excited are you to take advantage of new features that we make available in the SDKs. I think generally speaking, staying close to current is great because it offers a consistent experience between Zoom Workplace and the third-party integrations. But it's also important that you do your QA work to make sure any of the new features or changes that we've made fit with your application design and your media pipelines. So I'd say as often as there's QA resources to do so, but certainly there are times where there are special features that we introduce into Zoom Workplace, like the enhanced media add-on, which makes just a great opportunity to review the SDK overall and make those necessary updates, and do it early enough in the process that you can ask questions and experiment and work with your user community to test things out. Because what the meeting SDK really is it's a version of our own Zoom code base that we use to build Zoom, made available to developers usually within 2 weeks of Workplace releasing. So we just released 6.7.5. So in a couple of weeks, developers will have access to Meeting SDK 6.7.5. And usually you'll see several of the new features that are in 6.7.5 will actually have developer hooks in the new release. But even if they don't, the UI and functionality of Zoom will be updated because it's built off of the same code base.
Next question.
This one's from Mickey Macajor in Manila, Philippines. Does this progress pave the way for more production-grade contribution bit rates, 50 to 400 megabits per second?
Andy?
Yeah, I think it just depends on what segment we're targeting. And right now we're looking at remote contribution for individuals. And I think that that's made a huge impact around the world at the bit rates that we support. I'm not necessarily going after, these other use cases today where you would need, a totally different network stack and a totally different connection. But I'm not ruling it out either. I think what we're trying to do here is take advantage of what most people have access to, from their internet connections to their cameras, and to push the gas on that more, rather than trying to get into other spaces that are, I would say, that have more friction to adopt, and more challenges to build out the pipelines for. So not ruling it out today. But it's not what our immediate target is. I will say for receiver side, those bit rates can get up to, like, if you have a 4K gallery with 4 1080p feeds and you have enhanced media on at 60 FPS and high bit rate, that's 56 megabit receive to do 4 1080 feeds at 12 megabit per second. And then with high bandwidth mode on the receive side as well, that's 100 megabit of downlink for 16 video feeds at a time. So we're going after more of the individual remote contributor. I think these other use cases that have more infrastructure on the sender side are interesting, but I think we're making a bigger impact around the world for enabling more people to be able to connect to have part of these conversations. That's what we talked about with the Television Academy at the Emmys. That was what that innovation was all about, was making it accessible to everybody, to be able to bring in somebody from anywhere in the world to have an important conversation at a moment's notice without having to send a truck out there or specialized equipment, or have a dark fiber line run to that location or satellite uplink. This is what makes Zoom so flexible and enables a lot of these conversations at super high quality. These are high quality contributions compared to what you can get on WebRTC or other connections, and especially off of consumer cameras and things like that. But as you've seen with Office Hours, those who invest in their setups can get a lot more. And I think enhanced media is a great step in getting more of that. And I think when you take a look at it, it's going to be really exciting.
Next question.
This question is from Juan C. Robles in Mexico. Is there a date plan for ZoomISO, zOSC with the new SDK?
Andy?
Yes, but I'm not going to tell you.
Sorry. I wanted to give Juan this little check. Gotcha, buddy. Next question.
This question's from Guy Cochran in Seattle, USA. On a new paid Zoom account without 1080p, will the enhanced media add-on automatically get you 1080p plus the 12 megabits per second for $25 a month?
Andy?
Yes, although it's $20 a month with annual commit and $25 without an annual commit. But yes, if you don't have 1080p, adding the enhanced media add-on to the account will add 1080p to the account.
Next question.
James Haldane in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada asks, any plans for an option for in-room participants to join the meeting without their camera and mic? This would be a great option for a hybrid meeting to allow access to the chat, polling, and prevent accidental unmuting.
Andy?
Yeah, this is there today. It's one of the really exciting features of both Zoom Rooms and Zoom Events. It's called Companion Join. And so what this does is it allows let's say your laptop, if you walk into a conference room, it can do a number of different things to detect that you're there, including ultrasonic pairing, which is so cool that the device is emitting a high frequency sound and it can detect that it's in the conference room and automatically pair up. And what will happen is that device will not receive audio and video, but it will allow you to engage with chat, Q&A, and I think some screen sharing functionality as well if you wanted to take a closer look at a spreadsheet, for example, rather than what's on the wall in the conference room. So that does a number of different things. To your point, it avoids audio chaos with the devices in the room independently sending audio and video from what the conference room is doing. But it also allows you to use that device, whereas in a conference room, like you're not necessarily able to get into your account and do all these different things as a participant. And the other thing that's nice about this is it shows you as nested participants in the room. So your profile picture and name show up independently in the participant list when your Zoom device is paired to the room. Now, on the event side of the house, same thing is true. If you are an in-person attendee at a hybrid event that's organized through Zoom, your Zoom mobile app or your Zoom desktop client can detect that, and it will join you as a companion participant in those spaces as well, which gives you direct access to chat and Q&A without overloading the venue's ability to deliver independent video and audio streams. Let alone all the chaos that would cause for audio feedback in the room. It actually could overload the Wi-Fi access points in the space if like 100 people are in a conference room, or a ballroom during a hybrid event, and they're all receiving, discrete video feeds. This turns all that off, and it lets you still have independent participation, but it keeps everything, flowing audio and video through the infrastructure from the production team.
Yeah, you just got to watch out for those virtual name tags. If you leave them on by accident in the ballroom, everyone's going to have a little floating box under them. Although it is impressive that I had a Zoom room set up at work, and I went through the settings page, which is like a CVS receipt long, maybe two. And I went in there and I turned on virtual. I was like, yeah, name tags, why not? Like I'm so deep in the list, I've stopped making really conscious decisions. And then the next meeting, all of a sudden my name was following me around the room. I was like, that's impressive and kind of scary, but I'm going to figure out where that setting was. And but I can also see for when 5 or 6 people join from a room and you have people that don't know everyone else yet, and that is very useful. So
yeah, that is exactly the use case where you're part of either a large team or you have you're meeting with an external group. They don't necessarily know your team. You have the ability to sit down there and have a name tag automatically appear on your video feed, because we get that when we're doing something like this, where we're each individual talking heads, we all have a name strap. But if we're all sharing a camera in a conference room, having the individual name straps is useful for those kind of situations. Yeah.
Speaking of Zoom rooms, when we're in the enhanced media mode and we have higher bandwidth, I know that when you have a Zoom room joined to a software switcher or a ZoomISO or something like that you're able to send. You helped me actually set this up for one of my events, sending multiple video streams from a single Zoom room. Is that are you going to be able to take advantage of the higher bandwidth, higher frame rate for all of those individual, if you have the bandwidth to support it?
Yeah, we're looking into that right now. That's one of the things that we need to do to support the feature in Zoom Rooms is what we call multi-camera mode. So making sure that multi-camera mode concurrently can support these features and also can support them if those cameras are UVC, NDI, or what we call hardware I/O, which would be like your Blackmagic devices and things like that. So making sure all of those work and they all work concurrently and they all work with any of the smart name tags or things like that, and figuring out where the limits are for the hardware to have a good experience there and all that throughput. That's what we're working on right now.
All right, a little bit more to untangle there, but we will stay tuned. Next question.
This one is from Jonathan Michelson in Buenos Aires. Which kind of cameras have you tested with 1080p 60? Will iPhone's continuity camera feature, which outputs 60 FPS to OBS, for instance, work at 60? And Insta360 Link 2, what if the camera supports either 1080p 30 or 720p 60? How will Zoom negotiate?
Andy?
Yeah, so I have tried a couple of different things. So I've used I have a Camlink 4K connected up to the Sony camera here. I've been trying that out. That works fine. I have the Insta360 at the office. That one also supports 60 FPS through enhanced media. If the camera supports 1080p 60 FPS, enhanced media will transport it at that level. If there is a trade-off in the camera between resolution and frame rate, I think it's going to pick the resolution. I'm not totally sure about that. Most of the cameras that we've been looking at, they will support 60 FPS or they'll support 30 FPS, but they don't have that middle rung. I know there are cameras out there that do. We can take a look at that, but I have a feeling that it's going to, if the camera doesn't support 1080 60, we're probably going to do 1080 30 on those devices. And we're working with our hardware partner certification team as well to try to help make it clear which cameras that have gone through our certification program are capable of 60 FPS as well for this feature.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, have you thought of creating a plugin similar to Audiomovers Inject to enable DAW audio to be routed into a Zoom session?
Andy?
So we have a feature in Zoom that would allow you to select channels of a multi-channel audio device to be used with Zoom. So you can, it's under the microphone selection. You can say use specific audio channels, and then you can select those channels from a multi-channel audio device. I think for somebody who's working in this this kind of space, using specialized tools is probably a better choice, and then routing them into Zoom is probably the right way to go. Yeah, that's. But we do have that channel selection feature, which I know has been helpful for some of these types of use cases in the past.
Yeah, and I think I had to change it, I think, to original sound first to make that option come up to choose specific channels, because I've done this for something like I made a loopback patch. I know it's not the same as what Audiomovers Inject is doing, but I made a loopback patch so that I could have my microphone audio plus the Max audio be on different channels. And then, I had a different set where within loopback, there were channels that I wanted to hear in my ears that I didn't want Zoom to hear. And so that was where the routing happened. But Mickey actually showed me. At first, I had totally got myself in trouble because I didn't know that those used specific channels were there. So I thought that I had things figured out in my loopback patch, but it actually wasn't. And then Mickey said, no, you got to go in and make sure you select your right stuff. And he set me straight.
Yeah, I've made this mistake as well, where like in my Mo2, for example, it takes my audio output, it makes it available as an input channel. And if I don't turn on the use specific audio, I have the feature in front of me now. It's called use specific audio input channels. And then the subsetting is audio input channels. And it gives you a selection where you can pick which channels you want to subscribe to. And so I, for example, I was trying to debug, why am I having cancellation back or why am I echoing back into the meeting? And it was because I didn't turn that on and I was sending audio channels back just because there's a loop back inside of the Mo2. So that's a helpful setting to set. And you should be able to set it independently of what we call our microphone modes, which are noise removal, personalized audio isolation, and original sound. So I, for example, am using personalized audio isolation, which allows you to make a voice print. And then I'm also using the use specific audio input channels as well at the same time. So.
Next question.
This question comes from JJ McKenna in Scabo, California. Speaking of Viz, any idea when they plan to fix the SDK integration so they can capture share screen again in the Tricaster line?
Andy?
Yeah, I know they're working on that one. I think that's probably coming in an upcoming release, but that was one of the feedback items that we had shared with them, and I know they're working on it, but I'm not sure exactly when they'll ship that.
Next question.
Dave Troutman in Edmonton, Canada asks, is there any way to turn off the AI side panel in the home panel in Zoom?
Andy?
You can control functionality of it through the web portal. Specific UI-related things, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I know that the admin has control of which features are available through the Zoom web portal.
And if you haven't dug into, even if you're just an individual, if you haven't clicked on the advanced settings or more features within the Zoom app settings, or gone to zoom.us and went into there's a lot more granularity and a lot more things that you can turn on and off via the browser than what you normally see within the application. So if you haven't been in there, give yourself some time so that you don't feel rushed, because it is a lot of settings, but it is pretty incredible the level of boxes that you can check on and off. Next question.
This one is from Jonathan Michelson in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Where's the question? We're stuck here. Hold on a second.
He says, does ladder encoding...
Hold on, I got it.
Oh, you got it?
Does ladder encoding also apply to the Screenshare pipeline? And is my 4K Screenshare also made available in 1080p, 720p? How is this linked to optimize for video clip? I've experienced audio and video only be in sync if I enable that option.
Andy?
Yeah, so what Optimize for Video is doing is it's saying that you would like to prioritize the frame rate. And so you're going to go up to a maximum of either 1080p or I think sometimes 1440p as well at 30 FPS. Whereas if you turn off Optimize for Video, you'll be able to share, I believe it's up to 4K, but it'll be at a lower frame rate. And then so audio, for example, if you're going to be sharing a video, you want to turn on Optimize for Video, because otherwise the frame rate's going to throttle and the audio is not going to be in sync with the video because of the march of how those two different independent channels are working. Whereas when you optimize for video and you're sharing computer sound, those are linked together, and because it's like a participant video pipeline in that regard. So that's the main difference there. And then when you have enhanced media, you'll have a 1080-60 option as well coming off of that.
Next question.
This one's coming from JJ McKenna in Scabo, California. Any consideration to providing additional audio channels to and from comms for functionality? And sorry, I misread that. Any consideration to providing additional audio channels to and from for comms functionality in the new tool set?
Andy?
Yeah, it's certainly a use case that we're aware of, and I don't want to get into specific future plans, but this is something that we're certainly aware of. Today, if you were doing this, check out Space Comms. It's so cool that it has a right-hand panel app directly inside of Zoom. You can send one-way audio to remote guests directly inside of Zoom. They don't have to install any additional software. They don't have to set up any special accounts. Space Comms makes it super easy. I know Office Hours is using it, and Jonas and John have done such a great job with it. So it's definitely something to check out, and we're super excited that it's delivering comms style functionality directly inside of Zoom through a Zoom app. So check that out.
Next question.
This one's from Douglas Carmichael. Will enhanced media be able to pass HDR?
Andy?
Not at this time. The focus has been more on the resolution and frame rate and bit rate. And we'll look, we're always looking for things in the future and down the line. That's not one of the things that we have currently in the enhanced media add-on.
Next question.
This one's from Ronnie Hofsoy in Tromsø, Norway. Is it only ZR that supports multiple cameras, or is this also available in the Zoom Meeting API? Are we still forced to use multiple clients to add multiple cams, if not using Zoom Rooms?
Andy?
Yeah, so this is a feature of Zoom Rooms called multi-camera mode, and Zoom Rooms is the client that supports multiple cameras simultaneously. The Meeting SDK is based on the Zoom desktop client, which only supports one camera return feed. So it's not something that we make available to developers because it's not part of the Zoom Workplace client, which the SDK is for. So multi-camera mode is the feature to use to do that through Zoom Rooms. Now, the other thing that's interesting as we start talking about containerization and cloud workflows, this is where zOSC Cloud could be interesting, because you want to do, 5 return feeds. We'll spawn 5 instances of that container and have 5 MXL flows going to them and have them return. No additional hardware needed, right? So that's where what we call horizontal scaling inside of the cloud becomes really interesting, and that's some of the workflows that I think ZoomISO Cloud is going to unlock in the future. But that's something to keep an eye on. Next question. This one's from Ronnie Hofsoy in Tromsø, Norway. Is it only ZR that supports multiple cameras, or is this also available in the Zoom Meeting API?
This
Next question.
This question is coming from James Haldane in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. We often screen share the program output from our switcher. We have a somewhat complicated method for doing this. Is there a recommended workflow for this? We need it to appear in the screen share window.
Andy.
Yeah, I think that's probably. I mean, if you share it to a screen and then capture the screen, that's one way of doing it. For live, if you have a video file for playout, you can upload a file and you can play that out through Screenshare. You can also do share from second camera, although the interface for that I think requires that you cycle through cameras to get to the one that you want to use. It doesn't have like a drop down to specifically pick a camera. It might be dated on that, but that's how I remember it. So yeah, if you're doing that, that's you would share it to a screen and then you do screen share, turn on optimize for video, turn on sound if you're returning sound, and then you would share that display back.
So in other words, if you have a computer that has your program out as a full screen and you're trying to pump that back into the meeting, that's the way that it sounds like that's what he's accomplishing with this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that with enhanced media, I would just return it as a camera feed and spotlight it. But if you were going to do it through the screen share pipeline, that's how I think you would look at it.
Yeah, I've also seen it where, and it's a little tricky, but like I've had two instances of Zoom running. I have one, like I was using Ecamm for this one, but I had Zoom integrated into Ecamm and also regular Zoom running on the same machine, as that was my way to get that program back in, because it was using Ecamm's virtual camera to pump back into the meeting. But I know that's a slightly different setup. Next question.
This one is from Jonathan Michelson in Buenos Aires, Argentina. How can I get access during February if I don't have a sales rep? I manage the Zoom account for a different business. Would like to start testing now and launch in March. Support ticket didn't yield a result. They want me to just wait. Andy.
Yep. So if that business has a rep with Zoom, then you could work through that business to work on getting access. But again, there's a reason why we're asking people to wait till March 21st to get access to it. And all the tools that you're probably using to take advantage of this won't support it if you do it today. You have to wait for the next update of those. So you'll have to wait till March to purchase it on the website.
Next question.
This one's from Douglas Carmichael. Have you ever thought of a 4K option for enhanced media?
Andy?
I have certainly thought about a 4K option for enhanced media. It's not part of the add-on today, but and I'll just spend a second on the reasoning for this. If you think about how to spend your bit rate, I would so much rather have a high bitrate 1080p video stream than a lower bitrate 4K video stream from a quality perspective. I see a lot of thumbs in the panel agreeing with that sentiment right now. You know, everybody who has an A10 Mini is limited to 1080p in the first place. You know, there are not a lot of true 4K video pipelines that are delivering that full bandwidth and that full benefit in the first place. And so I think the impact radius of taking all those 1080p cameras and all those 1080p capture cards and connections and switchers and up leveling the quality of that to give more detail is a more important initial priority than stretching that bit rate across more pixels. And I think you'll actually see that the 1080p high bit rate is a better choice for the short term. But that doesn't rule out 4K in the longer term anyway. It's just that with the infrastructure that we've built out, I'd rather spend those bits on 1080p right now and supporting 60 FPS and things like that than just going for numbers because a higher number doesn't always equal more better.
Well, and not only bitrate, but also frame rate. I mean, I would rather see, especially in the size screens we're talking about, most of us are not looking at a Zoom when we're in the meeting, at least. I'm sure that if you're using Zoom for transport for something that's bigger, you might end up on a TV. Chris Fenwick has sometimes, he sent me a picture of office hours on his TV in the backyard. I was like, oh, look at that. We're huge. Most of the time, though, for Zoom, you're not on a 55-inch plus screen. And so you kind of have diminishing returns, whether it's in the capability of your hardware or the capability of your eyesight on are you noticing the difference. However, the fluidity and the realness and the immediacy of 60 frames a second or more, as some folks on office hours have said, or more than 60, is where things start to become more lifelike. And so you have this trade-off between like Andy said, am I making my spend in terms of my bandwidth spend? Am I making that in terms of immediacy, or am I making that in terms of, a number? Next question.
This one is coming from Guy Cochran in Seattle, USA. Can you tell us more about ZoomISO Cloud?
Do tell, Andy.
Yeah, so ZoomISO Cloud is a containerized version of ZoomISO designed to run in cloud environments. And today we've been demoing it with the Media Exchange Layer protocol. We have some plans to support other protocols as well in the future. It exposes its interface as a web URL that you can load up and interact as a web page. We'll also be looking at some of the things like the Grass Valley AMP Control SDK to have custom panels that you can build and embed Zoom functionality into that. But it's the same idea as ZoomISO in terms of doing remote contribution into cloud platforms from people who are joining in over Zoom. But rather than, and again, I think, while I think it's very innovative to take the idea of virtualizing a conference room endpoint into the cloud to do NDI streams out of it, running Zoom Rooms in the cloud. As everybody who's done that knows, there's a lot of friction around that workflow. There's also a lot of friction around taking other desktop applications and just virtualizing them into EC2 instances and trying to string it all together. And so I look at the DMF and what the DMF vision is for cloud production. And ZoomISO Cloud is how we are planning to basically build a service model around ZoomISO that's designed for cloud services and plant our flag in that space, rather than forcing people to virtualize desktop client software into the cloud environment. So ZoomISO Cloud is really imagined from the ground up for the cloud first. That's why it's a container, that's spawned. It's why it has a web interface out of the bat. That's why it's built around MXL, because we think that that's going to be a really important tool for how the cloud is built in the future. And one of the things I love about MXL is that it's an SDK. It's not necessarily just a spec. I think you look at, I was talking to a bunch of vendors about 2110 at ISE, and everyone's kind of like, yeah, this vendor reads the spec of 2110 this way, this vendor reads the spec of 2110 this way. And even though it's a SMPTE standard, like interoperability is still a nightmare. MXL doesn't have that problem, because if you import the same SDK that I'm using, we're going to be interoping. And so I like that it's an SDK. It's all open source. It's all available on GitHub. The EBU, the DMF, there's a lot of great groups that are involved. Linux Foundation as well. MXL is so cool because it doesn't have it doesn't require this management layer that a lot of these other protocols require. It uses Unix file sharing permissions as the foundation for media access. Basically, what MXL is doing behind the scenes is writing to a RAM disk. It's actually a file system, but the file system exists in memory, so it's super, super fast. And so if you have read or write access from Unix, you have access to those video flows. And so it's managed using well-established conventions. The thing that's so funny to me in this conversation is, as I'm talking to people, is that they'll say, it's so interesting that media production is finally, catching to the cloud, where, commercial services have been since the 90s, doing this kind of stuff. And, the cloud wave, is now hitting media production. But we're now standing on top of all this infrastructure that was built, to support all these other industries that have fully migrated to the cloud, right? So we're in a much better position, and there's a lot of great folks who are involved in MXL, and we're excited to participate as the first external vendor to support MXL in a live demo. Yeah.
Next question.
This one is from the QR code. Florence Donald in Maryland's asking, does the account owner need to submit a request to enable 1080p on a business account, or the account with the new feature?
Andy?
Okay, so when to submit a support ticket. So if you buy a single seat business license, you can submit a support ticket and get 1080p added. If you add a Zoom Events license to a pro account, that will automatically take place. And if you add enhanced media, that will also automatically take place. So no support ticket needed when using enhanced media. The case where you need a support ticket is if you have single seat business and you want 1080p. You do qualify for it, but you have to send a support ticket to get the feature made available to you.
Now let's wax philosophical. Give us one more question.
All right, last question is Ronnie Hofsoy in Tromsø, Norway. Anything else you would like to say to the community and maybe inspire us to do even more cool stuff within the Zoom framework? What do you see that we're not using?
Andy?
Yeah, so in late December and again in early January, I had the opportunity to work on two events that were using all of our production tools. We had, ZoomISO doing remote contribution from individual artists. We had Tiles doing large audience gallery walls. We had Graphics Toolkit doing chat scrolls and emoji overlays, and then we also had some stuff with zOSC doing some meeting management and automation. And so it's kind of like putting the Infinity Stones, into the gauntlet. You're gaining all these capabilities and using them them concurrently. And so I'd say at this point, we have so many tools and so many integrations and so many capabilities that the next area that we really need a lot of innovation on is event design and leveraging these things and being that person in the room during the planning meetings for these events that says, I know that there are tools out there that can make these amazing experiences and I want to use them on these events. And here's how I think we're going to do it. And here's the type of experiences that we can do. So I've got a bunch of information up there that I keep posting to my LinkedIn when I'm seeing cool things and doing things. And my hope is that these tools, they're tools for you. They're for you to use to build awesome experiences. So we're doing this work to try to make your lives easier, but also to expand the possibilities of production through the Zoom platform. And so we hope that you'll leverage those things and make some really awesome shows, and then share back to the community what you've learned through venues like Office Hours to share all those insights. So that's what I would leave you with today.
Well, thank you so much. I think this is always a treat to be on the inside track in terms of getting to ask nitty-gritty questions about the new stuff that's coming out and be the first in the know. I think you also have now the record for question velocity of most questions answered in an hour. So congratulations.
No, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be here. I appreciate everything you guys are doing to help people stay informed and keep sharp swords on media production. So thank you for all of that. If you do have more questions for me, by the way, I will be in the Zoom test kitchen this afternoon. So looking forward to having a conversation with David Paskin and crew over there. So, but yeah, looking forward to future conversations.
In addition to our great guest, I'd like to also extend many thanks to our panel for being here today and contributing to the conversation. Help us keep asking more questions. Thank you all. Also, thank you to our producers who kept that question velocity going, getting into all different corners of what's new and different. And thank you to our back-end crew for not only supporting the daily show, supporting the organization of this great thing that we've got going here and moving us forward, but also, burning the midnight oil, seeing if we can't test the new stuff and figuring out how to incorporate all that into the pipeline. Very exciting. It's a lot of bananas today on the Tlaloc Traversal for episode 2152. We've got 124,000 miles, which is about 6 trips around the Earth, 199,000 kilometers. That seems low, but 980 million bananas for scale. All right, we'll see you in after hours.
Well done, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to see you guys.
Fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. I'll never forget the first time I did one of these with Bill Davis, and we were just crushing through questions in. I guess it was after hours. It was it was right after we had a special session, and we were just like bam, 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 bam. It was like a total dance, and so I always enjoy doing that. It's a lot of fun to get through people's questions.
When you know your stuff, it's easy.
29 in an hour today.
Very nice.
It's fun. It's a good time.
Good
seeing you all.
I have a Zoom account rep to talk to today, I guess.
Yeah.
I have to
Sounds good.
Light them up.
Yep. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Andy.
$20 a month with an annual commitment. That's $250 or $240. Yeah. That's not a...
It's only $20 a month if you commit to the year.
That's what we need
200 or 400 megabits.
20